Okay, recording now.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kerry Glass. I am with the Rotary Club of Hilo, the second club in the state of Hawaii, and soon to be later this year, 100 years old. Started in 1920. We are so proud of those 100 years. And but anyway, this morning, I want to welcome everyone, and I will apologize at the beginning. I don't have the 3 videos that Doug had. Unfortunately, I tried to do one this morning, and I live out in the country. You know, the Big Island is sort of a more rural, and so I live out in the country, and our internet is marginal at best. We're waiting for to have fiber run into the area, to have something more high speed, and I'm particularly off grid, so I don't have cable or any of that stuff at my house. So the movies just were not working. So anyway, so with that in mind, today we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about Rotary 101, Rotary Foundation 101, and just sort of the basics of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of the foundation. I'm going to talk about its mission and focus. I'm going to talk, then delve down into some of the details of the various funds, and then we'll talk about the awards portion of the Rotary Foundation, both individual and club awards, and then finally closing it out is with just pointing out how absolutely easy it is to give to the foundation. So with that in mind, let's jump in. Hang on, so, there it goes. All right, so what exactly is the Rotary Foundation? Well, in 1917, at the Rotary Convention in Atlanta, Georgia, the then Rotary president, Arch Klump, made a statement that said it seems eminently proper that we should accept endowments for the purpose of doing good in the world. And with that statement, the beginnings of the foundation were formed. At that particular convention, the first donation of $26.50 was made from the Rotary Club of Kansas City, Missouri, and through the years, it's sort of been interesting how the numbers 2650 have been used at various times. You know, I've seen them used as, you know, we want you to make a monthly contribution of $26.50, or we set some goals for $2,650. So that number shows up on a regular basis, but that's how it started, was the first donation by the Rotary Club of Kansas City, Missouri. Then in 1928, when the endowment reached $5,000, they formally formed the foundation. And at that point, the very first grant of $500 was made to the International Society for Crippled Children, or Easter Seals, as we know it today. So that's sort of the foundations of the foundation. All right, so the mission of the foundation is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. You see down in the lower corner, I've got the Charity Navigator award. We have a 4-star rating. We have for a number of years, which is the highest rating that Charity Navigator, which is one of the primary raters of foundations, gives. And we should be very proud of that award. So there are 6 areas of focus. Doug mentioned these in his presentation. There is, of course, promoting peace, growing local economies, saving mothers and children, providing clean water, supporting education, and of course, fighting disease. And all of the projects that Rotary International funds and does around the world, and the clubs do around the world, focus on one of these 6 areas. All right, so now let's get a little deeper into the foundation. First is there is the Polio Plus. Doug talked about that a little bit. Then there's the annual fund, and that's sort of the engine that drives a big hunk of the project, all of the projects except for the polio related stuff around the world. And then there is the endowment fund to secure the future. And so we'll talk about each one of those. But first of all, we'll talk a little bit about the statistics about the funds, so you see kind of where we are. So this page is from the 2008, the last full Rotary year, 2018-19, and the annual fund, there was contributions of 126.1 million. To the endowment fund, which is the permanent fund, there was 26.3 million. The Polio Plus, there was $128.7 million, and that includes, of course, a lot of the matching stuff like the Bill and Melinda Gates monies that come in as well. Then there's some other chunks of change that come in, and for total contributions of last year for 321.9 million. And then you see in the far right column is sort of the cumulative since the beginning of the foundation tracking of what's come in. So in all, over $5 billion in contributions to the fund. All right, now when you start looking at individual ones, the annual funds, one of the ones that, you know, it's the big fund that sort of drives what Rotary spends money on, again, outside of Polio Plus, which is a focused fund. But one of the things when I first joined Rotary, and very early on, I got involved with the foundation stuff, and I would hear people say, well, I don't want to give to Rotary International. That's just a bunch of foreign stuff. You know, it doesn't help us locally. And that's just wrong. I mean, one of the joys about the annual fund, and especially when you check the share box, and for those of us who have been Rotary chairs for so long, and we're the ones who process most of the contributions from the club, whether it be checks or cash that's given as part of Happy Dollars or whatever, we always check that share. It's just automatic. Because what that means is that the money that we give, that you give to the foundation, part of that comes back after a time back into the district for us to be used here locally. So what happens is when you give $1, 50 cents of that automatically goes off to what's called the World Fund, and that World Fund is what is the day in, day out driving of projects and that kind of thing. And then the other half, the other 50 cents, then is invested for 3 years into what they call a district designated fund, and it's a fund that is invested to grow. And then at the end of the 3-year period, that money then is split in half, and 50% of it goes into the global grant pot, and then 50% of it, or 25 cents of that $1 goes into the global grant pot, and 25 cents goes into the regular local district designated funds grant and pot. And then the clubs can use that. The clubs then, the global grant money also gets some matching money coming from the World Fund after a while. And so all of that gets combined for the clubs to either take part in a a global grant project or in local projects, so that you can get your money out. You can use it locally for whatever you want to use it for. And so it's just a wonderful way to know that money you give to the Rotary Foundation ends up, a portion of it coming back to our district, to your club, that you can use however you want to use it. So that's it for that. Then, of course, there's the Polio Plus thing. This was a project that was started back in 1985. So far, over $2 billion has been committed to polio eradication. They have immunized over 2.5 billion children. And as of currently, the most recent statistics I saw was that there were this year so far about 39 cases, new cases in Pakistan, 3 new cases in Afghanistan, and that there have been no new cases in Nigeria since 2016. But those are the 3 countries that are sort of the endemic countries that we focused on. Right now, I know that the polio is using their expertise with polio because they're not going out and doing eradications right at the moment because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what they are doing is using the staff and the people to track what's going on with COVID-19 to help that fight. Then there's also the well, what exactly is the plus in Polio Plus? We always talk about Polio Plus. Well, one of the things that has come out of the project is the establishment of a cold chain for the manufacturing and distribution of immunizations in underdeveloped countries. That also includes measles, diphtheria, whooping cough, and tetanus. And the cold chain was a term I was not familiar with, but what that is that on these many of these injectables have to be kept chilled, and so they have a whole supply chain of keeping the materials cold and fresh during the whole life of the project. So they have developed that. And then they've also developed a network of laboratories and public health clinics to help monitor the disease. And all of these will stay in place long after polio is eradicated. So the plus piece is a sort of a lasting contribution to the health of the countries we're dealing with. And then there is the endowment fund, the other big one, and this is the permanent fund that's used for the future of Rotary. All the principal gifts are never spent. This is something that you can also, that some of us have done estate planning, where we leave a certain portion of our estate to Rotary, and that's where this goes. That goes into this endowment fund. So that helps build the future of Rotary. And to date, there's something like over 1 billion in current assets and promised commitments. So those of us like Susan and I have the Rotary in our estate plan. So we're one of those promised commitments. When I die, my daughter didn't get a piece of that. So, but she didn't need it, so that's okay. Let's see. All right, so then let's talk a little bit about awards here. Paul Harris, of course, the founder of the, who's called the father of Rotary. When he died in 1947, after his death, a memorial fund was created, and donations for that fund grew incredibly. And this was after they had been very poor for a long period of time because of the Great Depression and World War II. the contributions were down. And so the fund was started, Memorial Fund was started, and after that, it grew substantially. And then that is when RI created this Paul Harris Award to honor anyone who at the time donated $1,000 or more to the foundation. I read somewhere that that's sort of the equivalent of about $11,000 right now. So that was a big chunk of change back when that was created. And then, of course, the Paul Harris Fellowship, which many of us belong to, recognizes your foundation giving. And again, today, as in the way it was started, when you donate $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation, you become a Paul Harris Fellow. And then for each $1,000 you donate after that, and this is a cumulative amount, it doesn't have to be $1,000 a year or a week or a month. So then it raises that level to a Paul Harris +1, +2, etc. And at the same time that you get recognition points are earned for every dollar donated to any TRF fund. So if you donate to Polio Plus, not only does that money you give to Polio Plus go towards your Paul Harris levels, you get recognition points that you can use for to give to other people or family members. And you can also receive gifted recognition points to raise your Paul Harris levels. Many people who use the recognition points to make their spouse fellow Paul Harris Fellow if they're not a Rotarian, or their children, or recognize somebody to give some amount of club points to somebody in the club who they feel is just really outstanding. And we also use, in our club, we use some of the recognition points that the club actually receives for global grant work and that kind of thing. We actually use those for matching points programs, so that when somebody contributes X amount of dollars, the club will match those dollars with points that will go towards their Paul Harris levels as well. This is what I was just saying. This is really the details on the recognition points. You get the points when you make contributions to any of the funds, to Annual Fund, Polio Plus, or a qualifying grant, and you receive one recognition point for every dollar. And then you can transfer these points to others to help them qualify for Paul Harris Fellows. And then there are other types of awards that are given out on an individual basis. There are sustaining members awards, and that is a recognition of anyone who gives $100 to the annual fund each year. And that's specific to the annual fund, not the other funds. The Paul Harris Fellow Award, of course, that's a cumulative $1,000. There's the Paul Harris Society, which is somebody who gives $1,000 annually to any of the funds. Paul, whether it be Annual Fund or whether it be Polio Plus or one of the global grants. Then there is the White Hat Society, which is a $5,000 a year contribution. And then there is Major Donor, which is a cumulative award. So after you have given $10,000 in real money, then you are recognized as a major donor. Recognition points do not count towards this one. So if somebody gave you 500 points because you're a great Rotarian, that 500 doesn't count towards the major donor. This is $10,000 in real money. Okay, and then there are giving contribution recognitions for the club, one of the things you will hear about a lot is this E-Ray, or every Rotarian every year. And this is a banner award that the clubs can earn when each member donates $25 to the annual fund. Again, this is specific to the annual fund. And the club's overall average giving is $100 per member. Then the club is awarded that banner. I know we're very proud at the Rotary Club of Hilo to have received that, you know, for a number of years. It's a very nice and proud award to get, and it recognizes the importance of the Rotary Foundation that the club places. And then there is another recognition, which is Foundation Giving Club, and that's when every member donates $25 to any of the funds. And again, where the club's average giving is $1,000 per member, and again, or $100 per member across the whole thing. And then finally, it's so easy to give. You know, at meetings, you can write checks payable to the Rotary Foundation, and you mark whether it's the annual fund or Polio Plus, or you can give cash. You know, often during Happy Dollars, people have cash. You know, they have $10 here, $5 here, whatever. That's all collected, given to your chair, foundation chair, and they in turn package it all up and send it all off to RI, and then they track the giving that individuals do as well. You can also mail checks directly to the Rotary Foundation in Chicago. You can also do what many of us do, and Susan and I do that, is we donate directly. We log on and we donate via credit card on a annual, you know, you can do it weekly, monthly, quarterly, any combination you want to do, because it's, you know, it's as simple as an $84 a month contribution will equal over $1,000 per year, and that'll qualify you for the Paul Harris Society. And $85 a month, $84 a month is not, you know, it's money. I mean, it would certainly pay for going out to eat. Well, wait, we can't go out to eat, but anyway, it is easily to do. You know, that it's like the little number times a big number ends up with a bigger number, and so it's easy to do. So that's essentially the end of my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I'm not as long-winded as Doug was. Sorry, Doug. But anyway, I wanted to allow time for questions, and you can go from there. So everybody, I think, so you'll need to, if you have a question, you'll need to unmute yourself. Right now, everybody pretty much is muted.
I think I once considered you a mentor.
Anybody?
I do have a question.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
Monica from the Rotary Club of Honolulu Bay. And I was
Hi,
just
Monica.
wondering, hello, if anyone gives to the bequest, are they, and it's over 10,000, are they a major donor?
No.
No,
I don't
No.
believe they
No.
are.
No.
No.
they're a bequester. And there's recognition for that as well, but they're not a major donor.
Correct.
Major donor has to be cash.
Have we also talked about direct, Rotary Direct funds?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. That was
So when
before.
you give, yeah, when you give to direct, you know, you are designating to what fund they go to. You know, you can give direct to the annual fund or Polio Plus or a designated global grant, you know, by number, by grant number. So,
Right.
like my quarterly, my wife and I make quarterly contributions directly, have set that up, and they're all to the annual fund.
Okay, thank you.
Mark share.
Absolutely, shares.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kerry, there's one other award that we didn't mention, which is a new award from last year that we started, and that's the Triple Crown Award. And that's those
Oh,
people
yes.
that are both a major donor, a Paul Harris Society member, as well as a Bequest Society member. So if they reach that milestone where they are all three of those, then they become a Triple Crown Award winner.
And you get a really cute gold crown.
You do.
That's
So is that a district thing, or is that a RI thing?
It is a district thing at this stage. There are multiple districts that do it, but it hasn't been recognized as an RI award yet. But that's how it
Cool.
starts.
That's how it
Good.
starts. White Hat wasn't either for.
Yeah.
I'd like to mention also, the White Hat Society is not a TRF sanctioned society at this point. And but there are several people doing it. It's mostly a West Coast organization. And I want to point out, it's not, you don't have to sign up for $5,000 a year. You become a member of the White Hat Society anytime you give $5,000 in cash in one Rotary year. But you don't have to sign up for it, and it's not continuous.
But Rich would like you to do $5,000 a year.
I've been picking on you for that, Dave.
Yeah, we'd all love that, but.
Right.
Kerry, Arlene has a question about how funds are designated to the Global Grants Fund.
There is, when you make a contribution, you need to know what that global grant number is. And once you know that, then you can enter it either online, or you can tell your foundation chair, and they can enter it in on the form that they fill out. So when I send in money for the club, for an individual, if it's special, I have a form for the annual funds share mark, and I have a form for Polio Plus. And then if somebody wants to contribute to a specific global grant, then that's a separate box that you fill out where you put in the actual grant number, but it is easy to do.
Another subject, let me bring up real quick. Kerry didn't mention this, but well, he talked about DDF coming back. There's a three-year investment cycle, and then the DDF comes back to the district. And I always like to point this out. Our district is unusually generous. We do things in our district very different than most other districts. Typically, what a district will do when the DDF comes back, and it's about 50%, give or take, of what you normally what the district gives, and we typically give about $400,000 a year. But it goes back to the district, and the district typically would have a grant committee, and all the clubs would submit their proposed grants, and a grant committee would decide who's going to get funded, who's not going to get funded. What we do, and Mark Harbison is really big on working this, as is Laura, to work out the distribution. We have of the DDF, there's a 50% for global grants, 30% for district grants, and 20% what we call no match money. That money comes directly back to the club for us to deal with as we so choose, and that's very different than most other districts. Our district has been doing that for years, and so we really get to control our money. And I always use that when I try to push people for contributions, because the money all comes back to us. That's the other reason you have to mark share. Because if you don't mark share, it all goes into the World Fund, and it will support someone else's project, not your own project. I'll stop.
No, share is incredibly important to check. Absolutely. And like I say, most of us, I'm sure, at least I have always, I'm assuming when somebody gives to the annual fund, it's ticked. Share is automatically ticked on my form. Anyone else?
Kerry, this is Alan from Hilo Bay. Could you explain the cold chain as relative to Polio Plus again? I've heard two other versions. One has to do with vitamins, and the other one has to do with a time of the time of a year that they did something a long time ago.
No, cold chain, as I understand it, and I was not familiar with it when I looked it up. And basically, it's just an industry term for a process for a product that from manufacture to distribution or injection, in this case, that it is kept at a low enough temperature to protect that product. So it leaves the factory where the immunization is produced. It's kept cold during transport. All of the all of the people in the field who end up giving the injections or whatever in the field, they're carrying little ice chests and little refrigerators and stuff to keep that. So it's just really is that process that Rotary uses, but it's not unique necessarily to Rotary, but it's a process that Rotary uses to ensure that what they're delivering has been kept at the optimum temperature.
I meant in relative to the term Polio Plus. I understand the process you're talking about, but I wanted to know how it's related to the title, the label Polio Plus. I get asked that question a lot, and I really don't know. The only plausible one was about vitamins that came along with the program.
Well, there were, as I think I mentioned, there are a number of let me see if I can find my my little thing again. There were a number of pieces of the plus, the for diphtheria and whooping cough that were helped in the distribution of injectables for those diseases, along with the polio vaccine stuff that were done along at the same time. So, and that's all I can tell you, Alan, sorry.
I have a question. Aloha, everybody. My
Hi.
name is Dana Land. I'm with the Waikiki Rotary. Lovely to see all of you. Thank you, Kerry, for hosting this. I have a program that I have developed to help our youth of Hawaii called the Youth Ambassador of Aloha program. And this is a character building program that aligns with the principles of Aloha. And I'm curious to know, can I bring this to the grant committee here in Honolulu and talk to them about the possibility of getting some grant money for this program?
You can do it for your club.
Okay, great. So there must be some sort of grant person in the Waikiki Rotary then, who's in charge.
Community, you run it through community services.
Okay.
And you
Right.
can use DDA, you can use the grant, the club's the district designated funds. But they'll be matching. They'll match the district will match $1 for $1 for every dollar you put in for your club.
Oh, okay.
It's an ideal. I think it's an ideal use for DDF. Community
Okay.
services wise, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is Tim Hansen from the Rotary Club of Hilo Bay. And I just really wanted to thank you, Kerry, for this presentation. I also wanted to highlight the importance of sharing the points to help other members reach different milestones. I can tell you that within 2 months after I joined the club years ago, I was contacted by the president to prepare that I was going to be receiving an award at a meeting, and I didn't understand that. And he said I was going to be I will be becoming a Paul Harris Fellow. And so I didn't exactly know what that was, so I had to look it up. And then I contacted him and I said, look, I've got to practice the 4-way test. Number one, is it the truth? this isn't the truth. I made a small donation when I first joined, and it's not fair to, that I would be receiving this award because there's been some sort of mistake. And he told me that I had actually been gifted points to be able to reach that milestone. I was incredibly honored to receive that Paul Harris Award, and I can tell you it is for that reason that I have continued to be an annual contributor to the various funds. So I just really want to highlight to the clubs, don't let those points disappear or just be wasted in some sort of way, because especially for new members, it can really instill a sense of commitment and passion to the foundation. Thanks.
Kerry, I have a question, or actually a statement.
Yes.
Kerry, my name is Rich Corson. I'm the Polio Plus chair for the district. And,
Yeah, Rich.
thank you very much for this foundation information. Very, very, very helpful. And in answer to Alan's question from Hilo Bay, you know, last October, there was this whole, I don't know whether you can see this or not, but this was the cover of the magazine last October, and the whole central feature of the magazine was about what's the plus in Polio Plus mean. So it's very helpful to me, and I think it will be for you too, Alan, if you can get a copy or you keep your copies of the Rotary magazine from last October 2019. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's just that I hear, this is the third version of the Plus. That's why I was asking the question.
Yeah, Alan, also, Mark Harbison, if you check out the chat portion of what's, you know, of the Zoomy thing here we're doing, he sent a link that also delves into that as well, that may answer some of your questions as well.
Kerry, this is Murray Visser from Rotary Club of Windward, Oahu, and I have a rather prosaic question. The DDF, is that invested in the stock market? You know?
I don't know the answer to that. How Rotary?
The answer is yes.
Yes, and then also the endowment fund, is that?
Yes. Yes.
Also, so what happens in a year like the year we had been having so far, when there's a huge drop in the stock market? What will happen? What do you think? How will the funds be distributed? Let's say for global grants and district grants.
Well,
will there be less money?
I don't know what their investment, exactly how it works. If it's like, you know, my own investment advisor, you know, I don't have everything in the stock market. You know, I'm of an age that I need to have a little bit more insured stability. So I'm sure that the investment advisors for the Rotary Foundation probably do somewhat of the thing. Yeah, there may be some in the stock market, but there could be other funds that they're in that. And I may be wrong. Maybe they just roll the dice and say, "Hey, we're gonna put it all in the market." But I kind of doubt that.
So let Mark answer, and then I'll answer after Mark. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, there are actually two answers. One of them is, I don't know if you've noticed, but when you put in your cash for a global grant, there's a 5% surcharge for Rotary cash. That cash doesn't disappear or go into someone's pocket. It goes into a reserve fund for years like we have right now. The other thing is the 3-year investment cycle is precisely intended to smooth out the ups and downs in the market. So, you know, so the fund will have 3 years to recover from whatever's happening this year. And in the event that it doesn't recover completely, the reserve fund will kick in to continue giving to the clubs.
Right. So exactly. Yeah, that was exactly right. The reason it's a 3-year cycle is to help that smoothing effect. The foundation guys are absolutely excellent financial advisors. And then the other thing is the amount that your club gives, that district designated fund, half of it is going to come back to the district. And then the district committee decides how much is going to go to district grants and how much is going to go to global grants. And then RI then has the World Fund, which is going to be used for the matching.
Thank you for the answer.
Yeah, Laura mentioned how the money is distributed among the clubs. The amount of money.
Okay, the amount of money that's distributed among the clubs is based entirely on the amount of money that the clubs have given over the last 3 years.
On a rolling average.
On a rolling average. So the percentage of what the clubs give is divided among the total that we have coming back. And then that's the percentage you get of that total. So the more your club gives, the more your club gets back.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is a good time to just let everybody know. Rich said that we always give over $400,000. Here, right at the moment, we're at $253,000, which means that we're usually late. It's a challenging time for that. So we're hoping that everybody can kick up a little bit and make some contributions to annual fund share so that 3 years from now, we will have just as much money as we normally have.
So Laura, can I ask you a question reiterating about the global grants?
Sure.
So the district actually designates that depending on what we have contributed in the past?
Yeah. You get, so the total amount, what comes back to the district, all right, is district designated funds. And up to 50% of those district designated funds can be used for district grants. That's the way the wording reads. Up to 50% can be used for district grants. And so far, our district committee has always decided to utilize the full 50% for district grants so that the clubs have more control over funds to use locally or internationally that they control. And then the other 50% then is we pay for polio. We usually make a contribution to Polio Plus. We make a contribution to the peace centers. And then the rest will be divided up on that same percentage basis to what clubs will be able to use for global grants. And the district grant money, everybody goes, why is it so complicated with the 20% and the 30%? That's just because when this started, I don't know if you guys, any of you are old enough to remember the old, God, what were they called, Mark? The district simplified grants. That's where you got 20, it used to be only 20% could be used locally. So the fact 50% can now be used locally is a big step up. So the 20% was simplified grant. You didn't have to match it, you just got it. So our district kept it the same way so that even for clubs that are somewhat cash challenged at any given moment, you always have that 20% of your district funds to utilize in combining with somebody else if necessary for a project so that you're involved in your community. And then for new clubs who don't have a rolling 3-year history, we just arbitrarily say you can have $300, $150 you can contribute to a global grant, which has to be matched. And then the other $150 you can use for district grant. 60 of that doesn't have to be matched, 90 of it does. Did that make it worse instead of better? Sorry.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending, and I want to also particularly thank those of you who are so much more knowledgeable on some of the the details behind all of this stuff. I really appreciate your contribution to this. And again, thanks everyone.
Oh,
Thank
Kerry,
you,
I have
Kerry,
another.
for doing an excellent job.
I have another question. How can I just have that one slide that shows the money flow? You know, like some goes to the World Fund. Where can I get that?
I will be, the whole presentation will be uploaded to the D5000 site, I understand, so you can get it from that.
Yeah, I just want that one slide, that's all. But I'll figure it out. That's all right. I'll figure it out.
Well, I can send it to you. Murray, do you, do I have your email? I'll send it to you.
Okay, here it is. V as in Victor. I S S E R R M as in mother at hotmail.com. I'll repeat it. Visser, VISSERRM at hotmail.com.
Good. I'll send it to you, Murray.
Oh, I just saw.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, any other last questions for Kerry? And we have our experts. Laura is our district chair for the foundation committee, and Mark is our expert on global grants. On share, Dave Mostrin is awesome. White Hat is Rich Ziegler, and of course Rich Kurson for Polio Plus is on the call too. So we've got our experts here. Any questions?
Naomi, this is Mariko from Lahaina Sunset. Just I just put something in the chat too, but for families with kids, members, with small kids, their contribution will be great, but they may say, okay, well, the membership due is high enough, and so I cannot afford to contribute even more. What are the other venues? I mean, I normally tell, okay, well, $10 a month, will be great. And but are there any other ideas that people are encouraging members to contribute?
Laura, go ahead.
One thing I love Rich Corson's great idea of the fact that right now club members aren't spending money on breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So he's asking club members to just take one donation, $35, $30, whatever it is that you're spending normally on your club meal, one or two of those, and make a one-time contribution to Polio Plus. You could do the same thing. You could ask them to take Richard's great idea for Polio Plus, make that contribution, and then take another meal, because it looks like it's going to be a little longer before we're together again, right? One more meal, send that to the annual fund, right? And that each person did that, just the $30, it would make such or $20, any contribution is good. The $10, Mariko, does not have to be every month. Through Rotary Direct, you can make a contribution one time a year. You can do it quarterly, you can do it monthly, or you can do it quarterly. And any amount, $10 or more. So they could make a one-time contribution of, we actually asked for $25, because that's not, most people can afford to do that. $25, and then you saw the recognitions that if they give $25, then the club can get a recognition as well. So one-time contribution, $25 to Rotary Direct is a great way to start. And then the next year, if they can do more, they can make it quarterly. The next year, they can go ahead and make it monthly. It's a simple way to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Well, we've also got a lot of experts in Dave Mosdrin and Rich Zigar and Rich Corson, and who would be delighted to come up with brilliant ideas. Or anybody else who has a brilliant idea, feel free to share it with other clubs. And you know, we want to help everybody, but I think the important thing is to keep reminding people why they're giving. Okay, the money that we have right now that people are using to do face shields with, and to help people at the food banks and at Kathleen's programs, the money that we have is because people have given to the Rotary Foundation, and it has come back. In almost all the cases, that's the money being used. If we don't give, we're not going to have the money to use in the future. Thank you.
Laura, you know, for the Bequest Society, so we've had people, they designate the share in the Bequest Society, so
Yes,
we get it
yes,
back,
yes.
and then
Yes.
like Kapolei had a big amount that they could have they could use for grant projects because they've got that.
$19,000. They had little club of Kapolei had $19,000 to use for the for community and international projects. So, you know, just remind everybody, when you sign up for your endowment fund, you can also sign up. You can designate that as share. And if you don't remember whether you did or not, we can check with the Rotary Foundation. And if you didn't, they can change it and add share to it. Because I just did it last year.
Laura, this is Alan from Hilo Bay.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Alan.
Yeah. I hate to have that be my legacy when I finally go. Anyway, just lately, about a week or week and a half ago, I forgot his name, but he sent this thing out about 3 points. And he talked about donating to the Polio Plus program.
Uh-huh.
And
Rich Corson, yeah.
Yeah, for $25, the Gates Foundation will triple your contribution. And that's going to be done by Memorial Day, I believe. So that's another opportunity to take $25 and make it into $75 towards Polio Plus.
That's right. The Polio Plus is Polio Plus donations, contributions from the Gates Foundation. The matching is just absolutely incredible. And again, Rotary has made a commitment of, is it $50 million every year?
50 million every year.
And we're at 35, I think the last time I saw, although there's been a big push now. But we really want to make sure that we're meeting that match so that the Gates Foundation keeps the high level of confidence in us that they have had over the years.
May I just say also that in regards to that, when you contribute to the Polio Plus now, of course, Polio Plus is working in conjunction with the work against COVID-19. So all the resources and the networking and so forth that Polio Plus has set up throughout the world is now working hard towards treating patients with COVID-19 and dealing with trying to find a vaccine and all this sort of thing. So the network that Rotary Polio Plus has is really going to good work and to help out with the COVID-19. So when you make that contribution of $25 or more by Memorial Day weekend, you can feel like you're doing something good, not only for Polio Plus, but for the COVID-19 issue also. So I really encourage you to do that. And thank you very much, Laura, for your pitch on getting people to understand and to help with making that one-time contribution instead of buying your lunch, dinner, or drinks, or whatever.
Thank you for the idea.
You know, one of the other things about Polio Plus is that we often measure its success by looking at the number of countries that are left with polio. But there's a lot of money that goes into other countries where they're still administering polio vaccine in order to prevent the polio from erupting in those countries. And we don't talk about that. And we think all the money is going towards 3 countries, and that's not really true. So some of the literature that we send out need to include the fact that we do look at countries that we need to keep the polio. Even here, right? I think our kids have to have a polio vaccine.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're about out of time, so we can take a 2-minute break, but let's give Kerry a hand. Thanks, Kerry, and all of the subject matter experts.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll be back in 2 minutes with homelessness with Mark Alexander. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Kerry.
Naomi, Laura, I have to bail out. I have another meeting to go to. Good spending the morning with you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Mark, do you want to, Mark Alexander, do you want to try and share your screen? Let's test it out.
Oh, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that right now.
Okay.